So I want to say something up front before this gets misunderstood. I love networking events. I was at B&I for 3 years and I was president of my chapter for one of those years as well. Referrals close at 60 to 80%. Who wouldn't want that? In 1 year inside B&I, I generated 53 referrals. I closed 25 of them and that produced about $50,000 in revenue. So this is not me saying networking doesn't work. It does. The problem isn't close rate. The problem is predictability. Because if I didn't show up, if I was sick, if I was busy delivering for clients, business development stopped. That's key person risk. Today, I generate roughly $100,000 in pipeline per month. I get around 50 leads per month. I close 2 to 3 relatively quickly and another 1 to 2 close in a few months later through nurturing. And sometimes I generate my old annual networking revenue in one single month without stepping foot at an event. Not because networking is bad, but because I stopped relying on it. Let me show you what I mean. Okay, so here we've got the old way versus the new way that I'm now using. So let's zoom into the old way first of all. So in traditional networking, it's very normal to be part of multiple in-person communities where you can attend events, network, and grow your business. And for many business owners, they rely solely on in-person events to generate referrals. So that's things like B&I, Chamber of Commerce events, and also business clubs as well. Now, usually what happens at these events is you'll spend time getting to know people, letting them know what you do, and then eventually someone will meet someone or they'll get asked a question by someone in their network. Do you know someone who does X? Do you know a good accountant? Do you know a good mortgage broker? And what happens then is you get referred directly to that individual. And the conversion mechanism, so this is your demand creation. And then the conversion mechanism is usually multiple phone calls with the founder. Now, this is great if you're speaking to highly qualified individuals all the time. But what happens at a lot of these networking events is if people don't fully understand what you do, you end up getting on calls with people who are either not in a position to buy or don't have the budget to buy. So you can sometimes spend time speaking to people who are never going to close. And usually the result of this sales call is either they buy or you get ghosted and you don't hear from them again. Now that's pretty par for the course for any sales mechanism. It happens in all of them. You're going to get people who ghost you. But the problem with this traditional way and when you're over-indexed, there's 2 major points here. One is there's very little here that isn't manual. So if you want to get people on a call, you have to go and set up the individual calendar invites. And then the big thing is you might come across people who aren't ready to buy now, but they could become your customer, your client down the track. And another big issue with this old way of doing things is there's a gap here in terms of an evergreen conversion method that's going to keep you front of mind without it being really manual. And generally what I see with businesses who over-index on referral marketing and going to events in person and things like that is there's very rarely do they have technology like CRM or processes or things like that so that they can keep track of all of these relationships that are coming in. So really, networking is awesome, but it's optimizing for conversion rate. So referrals are the highest converting form of business. That's why most businesses grow that way initially. But if you've got 7 or 8 figure ambitions, like I do, like many people in my network do, if you're relying solely on going to networking events every week to grow your business, that's a fragile system, because if you get sick, if you can no longer perform, business development stops. But don't worry, my friends, there is a new way that I've developed with a hell of a lot of trial and error. So if we zoom in here to demand creation, I basically have 2 main channels that deliver predictable lead volume single month. So I've got a paid ads channel, which I'm running on Meta. So I don't post any content at all on Instagram natively. Purely a pay-to-play platform for me. My budget is $50 a day, and that's getting me around 50 leads per month at a cost of $28, which is massive. I will do another video where I'm talking about how I have that set up to be able to get my leads for such a low cost. The next system I have then as well running in parallel to this is my LinkedIn outreach system. So this is specifically the product that I sell to clients as well. It's the ability to generate clients from LinkedIn in 90 days using warm outreach. The technology I need for that to run is $350 per month. And then the whole thing that makes this system work really well is I have a contract partnerships manager who's based here in Australia, and that's $2,000 a month. And I also have him on 5% commission as well. So with this system, I now have the ability to build what I call a founder firewall layer. So the whole idea being that whereas with referral marketing, the close rate is much higher, so you have the energy for a lot more positive conversations. The downside of having a repeatable high volume system like this is the close rate's going to drop. So you're naturally going to be speaking to people, many of whom are not qualified or not in a position to buy right now. And I ran this system solo last year, and it was very draining on my energy to be constantly speaking to people who either didn't have the budget, couldn't buy now, or whatever else. So I built out this founder firewall layer, as I call it. So now what happens is these two systems are running all the time, and they're developing meetings. But the first call is a triage call, right? So the front end offer that I'm leading with is a LinkedIn growth session. So if someone is stuck on LinkedIn, they want to know how to get clients from it, we offer these LinkedIn growth sessions. But the very first call isn't with me. It's with Connor, my partnerships manager. He does the triage, and he can basically ascertain details about their business, why it's a now conversation rather than a later conversation. I do have another video, which I'll put up now, talking about the kind of questions that you want to be asking in that initial triage call. But as well as having that call offer, it's essentially a book a call funnel. For buy later prospects, I also have a B2B school community, and I'll actually put the link to that in this video. And that's a free community to join. It's got a whole heap of resources for people to be able to achieve on LinkedIn themselves. But the requirement in that school community, because I don't know if you've been in many school communities yourself, but you tend to find there can be a lot of lurkers that end up in those communities, because most businesses have it set up that you can just gain access straight away to those free communities. What we do is put a layer of exclusivity in our community. So everyone who wants to join, the prerequisite is they need to speak to us first so we can learn about their business if they're a mature business, and whether they'll be able to add and contribute to the group effectively or not. That's then giving us face time, which then allows us to maybe upgrade them to a potential LinkedIn growth session for someone who's a buy now person. And then finally, we have a local prospect offer, which is an event. So the big problem with networking events is and I guarantee most people are in this position, you're going to an event that is controlled by a third party. They set the agenda, and you don't really have any control over that. And because I know the importance of meeting in person with people, what I do instead is I have my own event. It's a really exclusive event based here in Sydney called the Wharf Social, where I get 8 to 10 B2B business owners together to network, shoot content. And what that does is allows me, anyone who's perhaps not a buy now person, I can get them on the Wharf Social, develop that relationship, because eventually someone may be in a position to invest later on. So that's the founder firewall layer. Anyone who comes into this who are qualified and who might want help now, they then go into the evergreen conversion layer. So what happens is when people come into the system, I've got a weekly newsletter. They automatically get included in the weekly newsletter. So that means I'm guaranteeing visibility with that person every single week, because the weekly newsletter is what's called an owned media channel. So that means that, unlike LinkedIn, YouTube, all forms of social media, if they shut down tomorrow and your entire business was built on one of those channels, you don't really have a channel yourself that you can grow. Whereas your weekly newsletter, even though most people hate emails these days, is still a really powerful tool because you own it in its entirety. If they're buy now people, they'll go into the main LinkedIn growth strategy session, which is call number 2 in our process. And that's where we do a deep dive into strategy, where they speak to me directly and we can hash out a bit more of a plan. And along the way, when people do book in for that second call, I have a series of YouTube videos that I will send them in a certain sequence to explain a bit more about what I do and how we help people, because that mechanism of having these evergreen conversion videos means that people come into that second call being a lot more informed and a lot more inclined to buy, because they've had a lot of contact with both my team and me indirectly through content. So YouTube is very much a long form platform. So if you decide, right, I'm going to sit down to watch this YouTube video, you're obviously a very serious buyer. Not everyone is going to go and sit and watch YouTube videos. So we also have the LinkedIn channel itself, which is a short form platform. That means once we're connected, they'll be seeing regular content from me. So with this evergreen conversion layer, it allows me to pick up a lot more later buyers than the traditional method over here of just getting ghosted after a phone call. And all of this ladders up then to the core offer for paid clients, which is $5,000 to $50,000 in value, depending on what their requirements are. So this is generating a hell of a lot of revenue, and usually buy now buyers buy within 14 days on average. The other element then that makes this whole system a flywheel is the delivery elements. A lot of it sits inside of school behind the gated option. So free members won't get it. But what this does, as I'm delivering for clients and discovering and recording new assets and things like that, these are assets that I can then break down and then use over here as a resource to get more people into the free community. Underpinned in this whole sequence is our CRM, HubSpot. Now, it doesn't really matter what CRM you use if you were to emulate this type of system, but it's really important to have a CRM in your business. I cannot stress that enough, because the CRM is the thing that's going to allow you to keep track of all of these relationships. Even if you're just doing traditional networking, trying to keep them up here or keep them in a spreadsheet that doesn't get updated is pretty pointless. Whereas CRMs, their whole ecosystem is built so that once you have your email and everything set up, all of the communications with an individual inside your CRM is getting logged, so you know exactly where everything is. We've touched on talent, really important. I cannot stress this enough, that you invest in talent to help you with your pipeline management. So what I'm doing with Connor is, although he's basically setting the appointments at the moment, he will eventually be able to progress to being able to manage the full sales cycle end to end, which protects my time so I can focus on building the best possible product and creating content for this audience and people like you. The next element, technology, really important, because these steps here, most of it is automated. And because it's automated, it's repeatable, so that anytime we speak to a client, we have the infrastructure in place to be able to quickly respond to them in a timely manner, because speed to lead is absolutely key. If you're switching from the traditional networking model to this model here, the temperament here is so important. Your close rate is going to be lower. So people might be used to 50 to 80% conversion rate doing traditional face-to-face events. Your close rate is going to drop to 10 to 30%. So that 70 to 90% of people who say no, it's going to suck. But the fact of the matter is, when you attend and you rely solely on in-person networking events, you can't predict when inbound leads are going to come to you. You can't predict when qualified buyers are going to come to you, because that's the nature of networking. But with these channels here, we are able to get it down to almost a science of this is how many leads you're going to get this month. And when there's predictability in your system, it means that you can confidently hire people and have enough work to keep them sustained. And you'd also have an evergreen conversion layer to make sure you're developing the relationship continuously, even for those people who aren't ready to buy now, but may buy from you later on. So here's the math breakdown for you. So when I was in B&I and I was focused purely on in-person networking, I get 53 referrals the year before I left. Closed 25 of them for $50,000 in revenue. Now, to put that into perspective, I had to network every single week to get 50 grand of revenue. Don't get me wrong, 50% is a great close rate, but it's very low in terms of scalability. And it's a very high in terms of time commitment. Now, with this system, I get 50 leads per month. I will close 2 to 3 of those in that same month. So the revenue that I get on average from clients with those 3 closes, this isn't per client, this is those 3 closes, I'll get anywhere from $18,000 to $150,000 in revenue. So you tell me, do you think a system like this is worth building for your business? Now, in this next video, I actually break down the LinkedIn outreach system specifically. So if you're someone who doesn't want to run ads, but you want to learn how to get clients in the next 90 days, watch this video next. I'll see you there. Bye.